All right, so our second professional kayak fisherman guest, Miss Kristine Fischer. Hey, how about that? We've been wanting to have you on for a while.
We have. We would want to make it work. And
are you living in Texas now, or are you living in Tennessee?
No, I'm still kind of living on the road. Like, I'm all over the place.
Yeah.
But I built my house in Tennessee.
And that's what's awesome about you. Like, you're fishing all the time.
Yeah. About, I'd say 300 days a year. Close to
That's
it.
insane.
Yeah.
Like, I know, like, so my background, a lot of my boys from California know me as like a kick boater, a belly boater. Like, we fish out of these 8-foot pontoon boats, and that's kind of how I started my career. And I brought a little picture for you. Check that out. 11-pounder out of the kick boat. Yes. That is a lot of work. Like, a lot of work. Like, loading and launching a kayak or a kick boat. It's not like launching a Nitro Z21 or a Triton or a Ranger or whatever it is. Like, that's a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, it for sure is. I experienced that, from the get-go, just having to carload a kayak like on top of my SUV. That was one of the most challenging and humbling
Lifting that thing by yourself?
Yeah.
Oh,
and I did.
gosh.
I was too proud back in the day to accept help from anybody.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would do it by myself for the first several tournaments.
Dudes would offer you like help all the time.
All the time. And, thank goodness I've learned a little bit.
Now,
over
are
the
they
years.
saying like, hurry up, lady, get out of the way. I'm trying to launch my bass boat. Or are they like genuinely like offering you help?
Yeah, now it changed. It's changed a little bit.
Trait, what are you doing over there? Texting House of Outdoors?
Excuse me.
I know that look, and it's not good.
So kayak fishing, obviously. So we had Russ Siders on, right? Good friend of yours, good friend of ours. I grew up fishing with that guy. Is he really like the KVD of kayak fishing?
Oh, dude, without a doubt. We've got a lot of what I would call some decent anglers in our sport, but Russ is on an entirely different level.
Yeah.
And his results speak to that over the years. He's probably one of the only people, like a lot of people ask, can you really make a living solely off tournament winnings? And even with the boat world, I would say no, like that's a really bad business model. But Russ is somebody that the last several years, he absolutely could make a decent living off of his tournament.
What are we talking? Like every time I like log into Instagram, I see this guy holding a $6,000 check, $8,000 check, $20,000 check. I think was there 20 or 10?
Yeah, 20. There was a 50 or 60 at the
That's
national.
insane.
Yeah, I mean, one of the years he I think he eclipsed $100,000 for kayak fishing tournament winnings.
That's insane. Yeah, that's so they got the Hobie kayak series. They've got now Bassmaster's got a kayak series.
Bassmaster's been in it for a couple of years now. Yeah.
And I heard they're going to like PK or something which is right down the road from us.
Second week of April should
Really?
be really good. Yeah.
Huh.
Is that like their championship or
No, that's just an
a
open.
normal?
Yeah,
cool.
just a normal
Sweet.
open.
Yeah.
Their championship runs in conjunction with the classic, so it'll be actually on 10 Killer this year.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Chris had a second on 10 Killer.
Yeah, I actually watched that one. Ed gave you a little bit of juice when he didn't make the cut. Oh yeah, I tune into all those.
Yeah, days 1, 2, and 3, it was all like strictly smallmouth, like dirt shallow. It was a September tournament. They were like 2 feet of water.
Is she allowed to hear that? Are you allowed to hear that?
Yes, our cutoff doesn't go into effect until I believe 30 days out. But to be safe, don't go too much into it.
Yeah, all smallmouth, and before the weigh-in on day 3, Ed's like, yeah, you gotta go check this largemouth spot. So I caught like 1 or 2 fish over there, and he gave me a nice little head start for day 4. But Carl ended up catching like almost 20 pounds on the final day. He's also a Hobie kayak pro. How about that?
Yeah, he just fished his first kayak tournament actually on Hershane.
Was Rue the bass dog on the boat or on the kayak with him?
He wasn't. I wish he would have been though. A little cold.
He did good, right?
Yeah, he cut a top 10 check. I think he got 9th.
Cool.
So out of 155, that's decent. Like Carl's obviously one of the he's a great angler, but it's challenging for guys in bass boat world to jump in because your area you're fishing, it's just different. It's a whole different strategy. Yeah. So, that was impressive on his part.
Like in what way?
Well, just from my little experience in boat world, you guys, when you're kayak fishing, we can't just pick up and run. That's the most obvious difference, right?
Yeah.
So, a lot of our strategy, if you're good at what you do, you're looking at a fairly large area, but you're looking how to catch, the shallow fish, the suspended fish, deep fish, and have several different patterns going on in an area, or you pick a pattern and you run it, you know, but when you're running it, you can run
as
it
far
for
as you
10
can.
miles. Yeah, that's my thing. So whereas in a boat, you can have a pattern down on the south end of the lake. You can run up into the north end of the lake and have a lot of different things that you're running and hitting, a very large milk run, if you will.
Yeah.
Now, where we can load up and relaunch somewhere, it's different. So your time management and just I think your strategy is very different from the two.
It seems though like a lot of the boat guys had some decent success. Didn't De Palma do pretty well?
De Palma, yeah, he got, I think he was like top 5 in the Angler of the Year standings.
Yeah.
Russ won that
Didn't he
one.
win one too?
He won Gunnersville, out of 240 some people.
Wow.
Now, did y'all see how he had his kayak set up?
No.
He built an actual like deck on the kayak
Where he could stand?
Yeah, so he had his foot control trolling motor. Several
so
graphs
basically
up there.
a boat.
It literally was like a boat. Like, I'm not even kidding. I saw it in person and at the Susquehanna River, and I was like, wow, that's pretty freaking cool.
I can imagine like all the hate he would get in the kayak community. Just go back to the bass boat world.
You know, I loved it though.
Yeah.
I think it's so good, and I love to see those guys jump into it. And because, you know, it adds a little bit of credibility to our sport, and it just also puts some new eyes on it.
Yeah.
You know, so I hope that, I know that there's some people that don't want them to compete, but there's a lot of us that compete at that level, and we appreciate it.
So like through COVID, like obviously like the whole kayak fishing thing like absolutely exploded. Like we saw more Nitros, Rangers, and Tritons sold than you know any years previous, right? I mean, that was the same thing. That's the same thing that happened in the kayak world, right? I mean, everyone was going out and buying kayaks and getting into bass fishing. Like I'm sure you guys saw that spike in participation in the tournaments.
Huge.
Was that easy money?
You know, the money was good there for those COVID years. It was fun. But more than anything, I just think it was great, you know, for people to have a really accessible way to compete. You know, kayak fishing, the overhead is so low. And we had one of our series, Hobie series, tournaments capped out in like 30 minutes.
Wow.
200 angler fields just sold out.
Dude,
like that.
that's insane.
Yeah. So for us, it was awesome. You know, we saw this huge growth, and now it's kind of tapered off a little bit, which we've seen. You know, I think money's tight right now for people, but during those years, it was great. We sold, and there's a lot of products sold that was good for the industry. I mean, just the fishing industry in general was thriving. During those years, obviously.
Did you see? Okay, so I mean, as we are sitting right here in 2024, how many kayak tournaments have you fished in 24? I guess not too many since February.
This year?
Yeah.
Just my first one was Harris Jane.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that was an open. No, I'm sorry. That was a kayak tournament, and then you fished the open in Okeechobee.
So my third one in a row, then we'll be on Rayburn.
And your finishes were what?
7th at Harris Jane.
Wow.
And 17th at in the open.
As a co-angler?
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the first side. Yeah, it was cool.
What a little change.
You started in a belly boat, right? Is that what you call
we already
it?
went over that. Thank you for getting off your phone.
No, but you didn't.
Welcome
go
to the
deep.
conversation, Trait.
You didn't go deep. Yeah.
What's Trey up to?
That's Trey and Paul. Trey is handling business. Yeah.
Can we get back to the conversation?
I want to talk about belly boats and kayaks. Are they a lot alike? Like for you, when you're seeing like all this kayak stuff going on and them building the mountain stuff, like when you fish belly boats, was there correlations and stuff of that going on out there?
Well, I did it from like 1999 to like 2002, 2003. And like the 8-foot pontoon inflatable was like, that was it. Like you needed that. And there was a bunch of guys in regular float tubes, and that's not even a thing, right? Like waders, float tube, that's not even a thing anymore. Flippers, all that stuff. But like I remember back then, like there would be like 1 or 2 dudes in a kayak and would be like, look at this guy. He ain't going to catch as many fish as me. He doesn't have the control. But now you got these torpedoes and trolling motors, forward-facing sonar, no flippers, and this and that. And, you know, going back to 99 and 2003, I would have loved to have been in a kayak back then. Like, I would have like California Delta, navigating through all that stuff.
Oh, gosh, would be awesome, yeah.
Yeah, going over, like, little pond dams and things like that. I mean, that was the jam.
What was the cost of a belly boat back then? Like a nice one?
$650.
Oh, wow, yeah.
What's the cost of, like, a competition, like a tournament-rigged kayak?
See, it's really hard to put that in a box because it really varies, and we've got guys that can get into it for literally around $1,000.
What's your kayak cost at retail?
at retail, mine would be somewhere between, with everything on it you're talking, or just the kayak itself?
First, just the base kayak.
My base kayak's about $6,500.
The Hobie that
What?
you compete out of?
Yeah. The Pro Angler. Yeah. 14360.
How? So 6,500, and then if you add everything you put on it, like if you had to
You're
pay
adding
retail,
10 grand worth of stuff on it now.
So now we're at 16,500.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
Plus the trailer, or are you car topping that?
Trailer for sure.
Trailer, yeah.
Yeah. I stopped doing that a couple years ago.
what do trailers run? Do you know?
They're $3 grand can get you a decent.
So we're at
trailer.
There you go. For 19 grand,
19,500.
you could get right into the
Yeah.
tournament,
But
kayak tournament
here's the
scene.
thing though, like, there's and I see a lot of these comments, and kayak fishing, it can really be what you make of it.
Yeah.
And we still have I could name several people right now that have $1,000 kayaks, zero electronics. Drew Gregory is a prime example, and he is consistent and cuts checks every time. So when people say that, and I have live scope in my kayak, I used it in 2 tournaments out of 20 last year. So yes, people, it makes people feel like they have to have these things to be competitive.
Yeah. It's just like the big boat
Exactly.
world.
Yeah, it's exactly what y'all are dealing
Yeah.
with. And I think, we can probably dive into that a little bit later. I think there's a lot of trains of thought there for sure to get into.
Are
But-
tournaments being dominated by live scope and forward facing?
Definitely saw that
Are they
happen
really?
for sure last year.
No
in the
kidding.
kayak scene.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How do y'all do that?
So if you don't have, last year we had a series that was human propulsion only, and if you did not have the Hobie 360 drive, where you could micro adjust,
Yeah.
I really don't know how you would do live scope or any type of forward facing sonar without
What's that 360 drive? What is
that.
that?
So you can move in 360 degrees. So if I wanted to just move, sideways or
legs.
this way, you turn the dial and your kayak literally moves that way. So
And that's
you
the
can,
little fins or whatever?
yeah, it's with your
Yeah.
feet, feet pedaled. Yeah. So, but with any other kayak, I don't know how it's even possible to be able to effectively use forward facing sonar. And even with that, if you don't have it on a trolling motor, the chances of like losing the fish, or if the wind's blowing, especially, and your kayak moves a little bit, you're not able to like really stay on what your target.
That's
Yeah.
huge. That's everything.
It's huge in forward facing sonar.
At the kayak level, you said that people use forward facing sonar, but are electronics really like as dominant as in the boat world overall, or is it more of just like your top echelon of anglers?
If you pull up to a tournament now, we were just talking about this the other day, like say you have a 200 angler field, I'd be willing to bet that at least 70% of those people have forward facing sonar on their kayaks. I mean, it's that big now.
Yeah.
Several people run 2 graphs. A lot of people utilize electronics. There's this like misconception that kayak anglers stick to the bank and like get to where boats can't.
Right.
So a lot of our tournaments are dominated on the same exact same type of stuff that the boat tournaments are. A lot of
Where the fish
offshore
are.
stuff, suspended fish.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean for sure.
Yep.
Now I think you can be consistent. I'm very comfortable up shallow, figuring out patterns, running shallow grass, and I think that that's a good way to be consistent. But very rarely does that win tournaments for us.
So 16.5, I think, or 19.5 for a rig, like and you're offshore, fishing offshore, like why not at that point do more people switch to a boat? Like with that sort of, because it seems like
It's a club, man. It's a club. The same thing with the
it's-
kick boat
yeah,
and
it's a
belly boat
community.
thing. Like it's a
definitely
total
a community.
freaking club. You're in a club.
And I mean, not only that, but there is a little bit of a trepidation factor when it comes to a boat. You've got a lot more that can go wrong. And I mean, the price of boats, people say 16.5, 20 grand for kayak, but I mean, I looked at the price of bass boat lately and I was like,
it's nuts.
I mean, it's insane. So it's still, I mean, everything, the price is going up all across the board.
True.
And I think that for a lot of people still, one, the community is a huge factor. We've got a really tight-knit community. It's a fun community, but the price too, you don't have to put gas in a kayak.
So this community, what would you say, like if you were to put a number on it, how many members are there in like the community of like hardcore kayak anglers?
Like tournament kayaking.
I mean, a couple hundred for sure.
Yeah, at least.
At least. Yeah, at least.
Like so all the people who fish the Hobies,
Bassmaster.
Bassmaster, KBF.
KBF, yep.
How many would you say around the country total?
I would say probably, I would say there's about 50 to 60 that fish a lot of it, that travel all over the place. And I'm talking like 15 or more tournaments a year, 12 to 15 tournaments a year. I would say that there's maybe 100 to 150 that are, above average, that will travel and fish 5 to 6. So that number's definitely grown in the last few years, especially with AOI, with Bassmaster getting into it. That was huge. A lot of people got excited about that. But I always look at it as you're kind of competing against the guys and gals that travel and fish everything. Very diverse. And I would say that's probably 50 to 60 people.
For some reason, I figured it was bigger. Just overall, not necessarily that 50
Well, we
to
have
60.
a couple hundred people in the tournaments, but that's all it's comprised of a lot of local anglers, of people in the local club. But I would say you're travelers.
A lot of jackpotting.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. A lot of that.
Would you consider tournament kayak fishing as a stepping stone type community or type tournaments? And you look at like the high school guys, you look at the college guys. We've had several college guys like graduate up to the Elite Series, the MLF, BPTs, whatever it is. I don't think we've seen a high school guy yet.
Yeah.
Will we?
Boom Boom's son, wasn't he in high school when he won?
Jackson Rambanis.
Yeah, but he hasn't qualified yet on the tour.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will we see a high school angler qualify for a national big boat tour before a kayak like series angler, or is a kayak series angler like? Is that a stepping stone like tournament, or from what you've seen, do like people have aspirations on the kayak side to be on the big boat side?
If anything, I've seen it kind of the other way around.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of boat guys come into the kayak world.
Yes, okay.
I've definitely seen that. And, for college kids, we've got a couple college boat kids now that are doing the kayak stuff. And one of them's absolutely killing it, doing really well. He sees it as, an opportunity to make some good extra side money. Our kayak tournaments pay better than BFLs, than a lot of those things.
Yeah, how do the finances work in a payout? So, like, if there's 150 people in a tournament, how many people does it pay down to?
So one of the series pays 15%, one of the series pays 10%. Bassmaster KBF paid 10%, and the Hobie pays 15%. That was a new change last year from 10.
So if there's 225 people and a Bassmaster, only 25 get paid?
Yes.
Oof.
But if you look at it,
what do you
pretty
pay?
good. I mean, if it was 225, first place probably be around 12 grand. But it doesn't drop way off. That's the nice thing. It pays pretty deep. So like last place money is still, almost $1,000.
Oh, and what's the entry fee?
$250.
Yeah, that's
so if you think about that, you can the money you're making versus what you're spending is pretty good. But I mean, now you factor in your travel and your lodging and all of that. You really need to be coming in the top 5 probably to make what I would consider make a little bit of money.
Are they polygraphing you guys yet?
At the championships, they do.
Yes, they are. Yeah. We learned some pretty cool stuff. Like with a polygrapher last week, it was freaking phenomenal.
I still need to watch. Yeah, I've watched the first 20 minutes of that.
It was awesome.
Yeah, I got polygraphed.
You got to get past the first 20 minutes because then it starts getting really good.
At my drive, I'm going to do that.
Yeah, polygraphs are pretty interesting.
Really interesting. So you've had a polygraph?
Yes, that the TOC, the tournament champions that I won at Eufaula a couple years ago, I was polygraphed at that one, and I was polygraphed at the one I got third in as well. And that it was a cool experience. Honestly, I enjoyed it. The guy was like, looked at me and he's kind of like, all the 30 years I've done this, I've never had a woman in here before. And I was like, well, it's first time for everything.
So then I have to ask you questions. When they polygraphed you, was it in a room or in a?
Yeah, it was in a private room. It was really quiet. It was like eerily quiet. And I had just smashed them. So I'm sitting here like excited, and trying to just calm down and I'm just happy. And yeah.
How long was it?
It was probably 30 minutes or so, 25, 30 minutes.
We learned so much in
yeah, see, I need to listen. I need to listen to the rest of it so I can kind of get some perspective.
Yeah, so now I'm going to ask everyone like the main questions just to know like how their polygraph went.
So you've been polygraph. Let's get in the meat of this. So you've been polygraph before. Have you ever been protested? And I'm asking you this because obviously you're a woman. You're the first woman we've had on the podcast. Like I watched her fish the opens, and I've seen like all the BS that goes on. This is why you're here.
Yeah.
I've seen all the BS. Like I numerous comments and numerous statements about, oh, she's on this spot because, that's Zaldain's spot or whatever it is. I'm like, dude, she never, ever fished any of my stuff because she wanted to do it by herself. And I know you're the same way.
Yeah.
But, like, there's always chatter and always talk because you're a woman. I mean, let's face it. Like, I mean, it's 2023, 2024, and it's still, like, that crap still goes on. Have you ever been protested?
Have I been protested? No. But have I been accused of stuff like that?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Like, I dated the hardest thing, and I can kind of relate to y'all situation because years ago, I dated the director of one of our big series. And this was probably 5 years ago now. I had been competitively fishing for 8 years. This was a couple years into it. And I had my biggest, what I would consider my most successful year on paper. And I won 3 big tournaments. And for me, I mean, it was like my breakthrough year.
Yep.
And I won one of those tournaments in the series he was directing. And I remember one of the I won't say the name of the brand, but one of the people in a brand that supports our kayak industry called my ex at that point and said, she needs to not be fishing your series anymore. And mind you, I was the guy, my ex is one of the most professional people out there. And there is not, I mean,
was this dude a competitor?
No, he didn't.
No,
compete.
He wasn't. He was just looking from the outside. He did not compete in
the series.
Yeah.
The guy that called. Yeah, no, he was not a competitor. He was just like a brand manager. Yeah. And I did not stay with my ex when we were competing. I didn't. I was so much against. If I would hear someone talking about a spot that even I planned on fishing before I heard him talking about it, I would abandon that spot because I didn't want someone to think I heard them talking about it, and that's why. I mean, I took it to the extreme and every possibility. Well, this guy said she needs to not be fishing those tournaments because. People are assuming that you're just giving her all these waypoints in these spots. But I won 2 of the tournaments I won was an entire different series. So he was livid. I was hurt by it. And I remember I was doing well in another one of the Hobie tournaments and I broke down. I mean, flat out bawling on Lake St. Clair. I was sitting in second place. Wow. And I was scared. I was terrified to win that tournament because I was like, if I win another one, what's going to happen?
So 2 sides of that story, like I can see where it's like, okay, like, like that's could be a conflict of interest, right? Especially if, think about you, right? If you, in your situation and a girl TD is dating one of the guys who is doing really well.
Yeah, the optics, I can completely see that. And that's what was hard.
Yeah, but then it's also, people just, when you're a girl, and I don't want people to think, oh, no one treats girls, I don't want people to think I'm playing victim of a woman, but it just happens. Like, it's like on steroids, and Chris has seen it. So, you stick out. You're like a fly in milk. Like everyone's attracted because you have hair and...
The biggest thing I was going to say, like the biggest complaint that you would have coming off the water for all those years fishing the opens was encroachment. Like people would roll up on you just because they can.
Yeah.
Just because they feel like they can.
When I was in practice, the amount of people that would come in on me, and I had a big pink wrap, so they knew it was me. Yeah. And I have a couple of stories of that, but they would come in on me, and I assume it's because they thought Chris gave me, or someone gave Elite, one of his buddies gave me the golden ticket. Yeah. And it would be hilarious in my mind. But the funniest part is someone followed me one time, and I had to use the restroom, and I was going in a creek as
you're trying to get away
back away, and they just kept coming with me, and it was in a tournament that there were no fish like where I was headed. Like it was like 110 degrees outside, and this guy was just kept coming, and in my head I'm like, dude, I gotta go to the bathroom. Like, go away. And it they probably think that with you. They probably think, oh, Kristine has all these elite buddies and stuff, and she's getting all this information.
That's
so
so
wherever
bad.
she is, I better go check it out.
Yeah. And a little bit to that, but more so that's why even when for our tournaments, we've got a period where it's fully legal for us to get information from people that aren't guides. We have a very strict rule on guides, but we can legally get info.
Yeah.
And to this day, the years and years and years I've done this, I've asked for just general guidance, I think 2 or 3 total times. And I've had people give me some information that I won't even touch with a 10-foot pole for the sole reason that in my head, I'm like, if I do well, I don't want anyone to have a reason why I did well other than it's all on my own.
Sure. Yeah.
And that guys do it all the time. Guys that I fish against get info from people that are hammers on the lake, and it's legal. It happens all the time. But I don't operate by those rules because I don't want anyone to have any reason to take anything away from me.
That's cool.
So, I mean, it's hard though, because you
yeah.
feel like you have to kind of operate a little bit on a different set of rules if you want to, if you want to really own what you're doing, I guess what I'm trying to say.
Do you, I want to come back to that because we're not quite there yet.
No, we're there.
Well, but we're not because do you have, okay, so you fish as a co-angler.
Yeah.
Do you have plans? A lot of people want to know. Do you have plans to do more in a boat? I was talking about the cost of boat the cost of everything. So do you have plans to get in a boat? That's what a lot of people, I know the answer, but a lot of people want to know that answer. Yeah.
So, the co-angling thing, I'm having a lot of fun with it. I did it a couple years ago, but my goal was not to, I don't want to be I don't want to be a co-angler. I simply did that. And I because there you're not, I've had a couple good experiences, but you can't really attribute that to really anything other than being around fish at that point. And then some good decision making too. But I am doing that to kind of learn that world because that is my plan. I'll be getting a boat here pretty soon, and I'm hoping to fish. Well, I am fishing the Hartwell Open on the pro side this year. Yeah.
Very cool.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited.
What boat you go with? I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Have you said yet?
Yeah, I haven't said yet.
Okay.
I don't think I can.
Yeah.
Don't ruin her.
Oh, nice.
Don't ruin her.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. It's been on the back of my mind for a long time, and I think
what caused you to finally make that jump?
Honestly, it was really hard. I've been talking to you about this for years now, and I've been teetering on that line. I'm very comfortable where I am. I'm successful where I am. It's a huge risk jumping into the boat world, but really the answer I have is that when I 9 years ago, when I saw you fishing the opens, it didn't matter if you finished in the top 20 or wherever you finished, just you fishing them and seeing you up there get on stage like with all these other guys. That was one of the most inspiring moments for me in my career.
That's cool.
Yeah. And we don't have hardly any women doing it. It's cutthroat. It's tough. It's intimidating. I don't care if I get my butt kicked. I don't care if I get my teeth kicked in. I love a challenge. And I honestly, I need to get humbled. I love that. That's one of my favorite parts about the sport is when I get absolutely humbled. And I think that there's a lot that I can do, hopefully, to help inspire other women to get into it.
What scares you the most about going into the front of a boat?
I think there's 2 things. Well, one thing I learned at this recent open, when I was in that lock, that was an experience for me.
What'd you fish? Harris chain?
Okeechobee.
Okeechobee.
There must have been 35 boats crammed in this lock, and my whole thing, I don't care about scratching my boat, but me I want to have pool noodles on the outside of my boat because I don't want to do anything stupid. I don't want to damage someone's boat. Like there was a kid during takeoff that bumped someone and people were yelling at him. I was like, that's 100% going to be me. I'm going to do something like that right off the bat. It's not the fishing. Like I said, I'm okay getting my butt kicked and finishing. I don't care. I don't feel like I need to go out there and just dominate. I hate that people have very high expectations of me. Yeah. And you probably felt that too. That's the worst part is the expectations that people are going to put on me.
Yeah.
But, I'm going to go out there and do the best I can and have a good time. But more so, it's just the operating of the boat because I simply haven't done it.
Yeah.
Really is the biggest thing. How making sure I'm safe because if y'all seen my driving, I'm not a great driver. So it just, I'm thinking gosh, if I go out there on Seminole and I'm running wide open and I smash a stump, I like my life. I don't want to, it's just that more than anything, more than the fishing, more than people having eyes on me. I can handle that. It's that though.
And I've told you this before, it's really not hard to operate a boat. As long as you have common sense, in my opinion.
Sometimes
what do you think, Chris? I just never... I had no issue just getting behind the wheel for some reason, but maybe
it's like a car. Yeah, like a car.
As long as you can read a map and you understand like where the sump fields are, like that you go out of your way to make sure you understand what areas like you should not be running in.
Yeah. Well, I'm just reckless by nature, so that kind of I scare myself a little bit with that. But you're right, you know, and I think I will. I think it's just the fact that, you know, I grew up fishing walleye tournaments and I drove the boat. I have no backing down a trailer is easy for me, but it's also just when stuff goes wrong, I don't like to rely on other people to be able to help me out. And if something goes wrong out on the water, I don't know the first thing about how to troubleshoot out there.
Yeah, so, that's whenever your boat gets rigged. Are you going to be able to be with them when they rig it? Are you going to go up there?
I don't think so. I'm going to try to make every effort to be able to do that. I'm trying to work that into my schedule right now. But in the meantime, I've just been pouring into this stuff, trying to learn. And I'm going to rely on people to help.
I used to hang out in the service yard with the service crew guys during his tournaments. And then he rigs his own boats. And so I learned enough through him. But I still like... When you're on the water and something goes wrong, that's what's nice about the opens, the relationships you make with the service crew. I could call them, put them on speakerphone, and then they would like go through it with me, like look for this, look for that. And then if it was too much, then I'd, have to go to plan B.
Yeah.
You mentioned just a little bit ago, it's cutthroat. Are you talking about women's fishing, like the women in fishing, or just fishing in general? Because before you answer that, I've watched some of the housewives shows, like when I'm trying to sleep at night. Like she's got these housewives episodes on, and all they do is bicker and yell and scream at each other back and forth. Is that how it is in women's fishing?
He's acting like he doesn't know what it's like in
I just know what it's like on the dude side, and it's like equally as worse, but I mean, it's bad, but...
Well, I mean, initially I was referring to just the level of competition in the opens, but I mean, yes.
Now that I bring that up, go ahead,
It's been interesting.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot and my eyes have been opened to a lot, and, women, they can be your biggest supporters, or they can also, there's a few bad apples out there that it's like, oh my goodness.
And there aren't very many apples.
No, there's not. And it's a weird competition thing. Like I know Trait and I at a time, a couple years ago, we felt like there was this weird tension between like recreational, I don't want to call them like Instagram anglers, but just,
influencers.
More like influencers. Yeah. Influencing anglers, and then like tournament anglers.
Yeah.
And they
I think
felt
that still exists.
It probably does, but it's this weird thing. Like, I don't know if you would agree with me on this, but a lot of people will put things on me or talk about me in a way like saying, oh, she's this best female kayak angler, or the best this or the best. I've never said that about myself, but people will say it about me. And so sometimes these women will look at that and say, well, she's full of herself.
Yeah.
Or she thinks she's the best female or the face of female fishing. And that is not who I am. I have never looked at myself in that light at all. And I mean, I've always shied away from that type of stuff. But I think there was people saying, oh, we don't care what this female influencer is doing unless she fishes tournaments. So that created this resentment with these influencing women, with these women that fish tournaments, I felt like, for a long time.
The hardest part, we've talked about it before, but because companies, especially right now, want women so bad, they've got like their budget earmarked for women. And there's only so many that compete in tournaments. There's a lot more that are influencers, but still the pies, there's, like Chris was saying, there's not a lot of apples. There's not a lot of women who fish.
There's so much
Like, what's the number? You could count on like two hands what the number is of tournament fishermen that are women.
I know that I'm the only, out of all those years I fished all the opens, I mean, I fished the opens for like 10 years. Out of all the years I fished all the opens, there was not another lady.
No, there was Christy Bradley.
Not all
who fished
9,
all
though.
the opens.
Yeah.
Christy would fish the northerns.
Brianna
Bradley
would fish a handful of them sometimes.
Brianna at the I think the last year that I fished, she fished was when she started fishing them. And then there was, when I first started, there's a lady named Janet Parker. I don't know if she keeps up with anything anymore. She almost made the elites. It was the year Chris qualified.
2012.
She was one tournament.
She was like second in points going to the last tournament.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I was like
I
third.
remember
third.
reading about
that.
Yeah,
it's crazy that she didn't qualify. The conditions completely changed, right?
I just remember all the media that and that was back before the Instagrams and YouTubes and everything.
I can imagine the
so
sport was
much
going
media.
crazy.
I was just like, wow. But I didn't care. I was just doing my thing, just like she did, just like you did, just like doing your thing.
She was from the north. I want to say maybe Minnesota or something, or Wisconsin
originally.
Or
then she lived in Texas.
But she lived on like Louisville or in the Louisville area.
Gotcha.
And she almost made it. Well, I wasn't fishing the opens when she didn't make it. That's when I was like, because I kept up with things. I was like, I gotta jump in, if I'm gonna do this. So I jumped in. I was way too green to jump in. That was. Long story. I jumped in, and so she was still fishing the opens at the time, and she didn't do well. She topped in that first tournament I was in, but then she kind of petered off. She hopped into the northerns, and then she like disappeared and like exited the industry, and then it was just me and Deborah Hinks fished a few of them, but there was, now there's just. Anastasia's going
to fish the Southern Opens.
But it's crazy. Like, that's literally, I'm naming the women
the
on the
only
pro
ones.
side.
Yeah.
That's why, like, when she had her rod series, right? She had her own rod and reel line with Wright and McGill. Like, she sold a bunch of them. Got a brand new set of golf clubs when she sold her first one. She sold a bunch of them, and it like blew my mind. Like, okay, so at first I was a little like leery, like, there aren't that many women in fishing. But then, like, saw how many rods were sold. I'm like, man, there are a lot of women in fishing. There just aren't a lot of women in tournament bass fishing.
Right.
There's like 6 of them, 7 of them.
Yeah. I don't know. I would say like the people who are buying my rods, I'll give it away. It was mainly the boyfriends buying it for their girlfriends, the dads for their daughters,
hoping
grandpa.
they'd fish more.
Because we say there's more women fishing, but when I look at my percentages of people on like my YouTube channel or Instagram,
terrible,
dude, it's like 15% women, which is a lot when you consider that, but it's not. It really isn't.
15% women is huge.
Huge
in our sport.
Yeah, but still, that's compared out of 100%. That's
nothing.
Yeah, I would have thought it would be more like 60-40.
Yeah.
40% females.
It's not that.
Yeah. It's not at all. So that was kind of eye-opening to me.
When you look at sponsorships, when it comes to women, I got them. She didn't deserve that. She didn't deserve that. And heck, I didn't think I deserved it. It ate at me sometimes. But also, I wasn't going to say no. You know, like if Skeeter wanted to step up for me, let's go. I needed a boat.
Yeah, absolutely.
I needed sponsors to do what I wanted to do. So I couldn't say no, but also like looking at Chris and him going through sponsorships and knowing what the new guys on tour probably did not have deals close to what I had. I was like,
it like kills you a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's changed for me over the years a little. I remember a long time ago, I think 6 years ago, I got third at the Hobie Bass Open in Kentucky Lake, and it was my best finish. And the amount of I'll never forget the interviewers were so focused on me that it overshadowed the guy that won the tournament, and I was livid.
I bet.
Livid. I mean, I was so upset, but everything, it was all over the place. People were sharing it. Yeah. It was like hundreds and hundreds of shares.
And they think it's you.
Yeah, they think it's
you
me.
Had nothing to do with it. You don't say no because your sponsors need you to do what's asked of you. You can't, if you tell a writer no, then they think you're a bitch for forever and they never come back around.
You don't have a choice. You've got to do these interviews, but you don't expect that these people are going to share it everywhere. And when I saw that the guy that won it literally didn't get even like a fraction of the attention I did, I remember that changed my entire perspective on everything. Right. And I told myself, I need to outwork everybody. So I'm going to make sure that as much as I can, I've got to be earning this. Every sponsorship, every opportunity. I mean, if you ask the guys that I stay with at the house and we're tournament fishing, they're sitting up, rigging, have a good time. I'm staying up till midnight editing video, putting content out. I did freelance writing. I mean, I can't tell you how much stuff I was trying to do just to, at least so I could sleep at night, so I could feel like I'm outworking everyone. So here's why I'm going to get these opportunities. And what sucked is that early on, I would still get companies that would call, and I knew it was 100% just because I was a female. And that bothered me bad.
So I'm not throwing darts at you whatsoever.
Bring them on, Trait.
Okay, don't get mad at me. Okay, so you don't fish on the boating side yet. Mm-hmm. So you're not necessarily, you're in competitive kayak tournaments, but I mean, if you want to use the label pro, like I think we're on the same side of that's the elite guys, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But you have some pretty stout deals, like crazy good deals. Yeah. Do you look at those deals and you're in kayaking, so not necessarily kayaking's growing, but not a ton of attention
definitely
there.
Not on the same level.
So do you feel like what are those deals from do you look at them and be like, okay, I'm a little bit of an influencer still, or side of, because you have great deals. Yeah. And you deserve them. I'm not saying you don't deserve them, but what category do you place those deals in?
So that's a good question. And I think that, when I talk to my partners about that, it's a little bit, I'm kind of a weird, what I would say, kind of an oddball in that, because it's from a little bit of both. Obviously my influence and my following is a big reason why I think I have a lot of that. Mm-hmm. But if you look at it now, I mean, look how, I think the fact that I wanted to be legitimate, if that makes sense. Sure. So because there's a lot of women that have bigger followings than I do, but they're not moving product and they don't have what I would consider the respect of their followers. I actually have people that if I make a post about something, people go and buy it.
Yeah. People aren't liking your posts because of your boobs. Sorry, Kristine.
We're still working on that over here one day. But that was my goal. I knew that I knew you couldn't make a living just by being a tournament angler. That's just not anymore. It's changed a lot. So I wanted to make sure that I'm growing a brand. I'm having, a social media presence. And some days I wonder, like, why am I doing this on social media? Like I despise so many things about social media, but it's how I make a living. Yeah. At the end of the day, it really is the influence, know, and I just hope that the influence is how I get my deals, but I hope that my tournament resume and just like my hustle out there on the water helps kind of legitimize why I have them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Because if we took away your social media presence, do you think that you would have the respect of these companies from a sponsorship level?
No, probably not, honestly.
Right. Yeah. And that's just the way it is. I mean, even with...
Would I get deals? Yeah, but at the level, probably not.
Right.
And why would they? I wouldn't... where's the ROI if I'm just out there doing well in some kayak fishing tournaments? Because at the end of the day, as much as I think our sport is great, it's still not a professional level, tour. It's not the elites. It's not the opens. It's not any of that stuff. And it's a different level of competition.
When a guy who's on the elites looks at Kristine Fischer and they say, oh, I just get a couple free rods or some discounts on some rods. Why does she get what she gets? What's your response to that?
Well, one, I mean, I hate it for him. But two, when you have that mentality, whether it's me or whether it's Chris or whether it's, a Lee Livesey or someone that's got great deals, your attitude probably needs to change. You need to look at them and say, well, why do they have it? And what can I do to get that also? Yeah. That's a whole mind shift. And I see that so much. And what kills me is I've seen it over the years from some people that I considered friends. Right. That's what hurts is people that, when you want to share in an accomplishment or something that you've earned and they think that, well, I deserve that. Why should you get that? Yep. Man, that's been hard. It's been one of the hardest things over the years. So I've learned to keep that very private now. Yeah. Your business is your business. But yeah, people that look at that and say that, the only answer I have is look at what you can be doing better. If there's people that are where you want to be or have these deals, learn from them. Yeah. Sit down and ask them, why? Because sponsorships now they're not super easy to come by. Companies aren't just dishing them out. Mm-mm. You've got to be doing something to earn them. So what I've always tried to do is learn from people and look at what they do and listen to the podcasts, see what they're doing out there. Why are they getting these deals? What are they doing? And how can I be better? How can I be more valuable? Talk to the brands. Like, what do you guys want from me? When I first started, I wasn't getting a bunch of paid deals. Yeah. And I mean, I remember my first paid sponsorship was $500.
How did your first big sponsorship come about? One that you're like is at a level that an elite guy would want.
I'm trying to think when that would have been. So probably about 4 years ago now, I would guess. It took me, a while to get to where one that would actually, I would consider like kind of life-changing. Yeah. Not life-changing, but made it to where I could actually breathe. 4 years ago now.
Did they reach out to you?
yeah, that's kind of the crazy thing is that I haven't had to do much asking. And
They
that's
all
another thing
came
I
to
feel.
you.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I trust me, I felt a little guilty about that. I haven't had to go out and look for much. Now, I think I'm very good at networking. I spend a lot of time in the industry. I talk to a lot of people. Like I said, I did a ton of freelance writing for 10 years now in the outdoor world. I worked in hard goods sales, so I met a lot of the brand reps back when I was 21 years old.
Yeah, how does that, not to change the subject, but how does that, because I think that viewers might be interested, how does the writing that you did, like, I know that you were writing and getting paid for it,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And that's kind of how you're making it along for a
Yeah.
good portion.
Yeah.
How does that even work? Like, who do you write for? Like,
So
how are you getting the deals?
So I would write for like a Kayak Angler magazine. I did stuff for Gear Junkie. I would just I think a lot of the people found my writing on some of my like social media posts. I had a blog back in the day. So I had an editor that found some of my stuff and asked me if I'd start writing for this. And then that was just kind of word of mouth. Back when I worked at Shields, I did some work with I worked at the archery shop and did a lot of work on people's bows and everything. And so I'd have people that would come in and I'd go out and do some work with them in the field, and they would say, "Hey, you're very well spoken. Do you ever consider writing about something like this, like doing gear reviews?" So I did a lot of gear reviews back in the day that would turn into stories. I was kind of a storyteller.
Yeah.
So it just
Which is your brands on social media.
Yeah.
That your posts they tell stories.
Yeah. Now they do. And that was before I had any type of social media when I worked at the bow shop. But yeah, and that was one of my favorite things was telling stories, on Instagram, sharing like my journey. Cause I've got kind of a very unorthodox life, from childhood on up. So I thought it was something that was different and people might find interesting.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Chris, just, you said archery. Today, Chris signed up for the Arizona draw for elk.
Clifford Perch, my guy.
Oh, wow.
My 5'7" buddy.
He's never
We
shot
see eye
a,
to
he's
eye.
never shot a deer.
I was going to say, and you're going elk right out the gate. That's ballsy. Good for you, man. I'll save me some, some elk meat.
Yeah, I'll be all right.
Yeah. But he's using a rifle.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. I didn't mean to say, like that was condescending. That probably came off really bad.
What a loser.
I'm a bow hunter at heart.
I'm a gun guy.
Yeah, I made Guillermo start shooting with the bow, so.
Rookie.
Yeah.
Guillermo's your boyfriend, right?
Yeah.
And he fishes the kayak tour as well.
He does, yeah. He doesn't fish as many as I do, but, G was one of the old school legends in Texas. He was one of the ones that you could make a living off of tournament winnings back in his early 20s, mid-20s.
Yeah. How old is he now?
He's 3 years younger than me,
Yeah.
so he's 30. Rawr. Oh, man, what is he, 33 now, I think?
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, Guillermo's a good dude.
he is.
All you kayak, everyone
some
I met
good
from the
ones.
kayak world are like super, super cool people.
Yeah, and man, I was so fortunate because, these guys have become like brothers to me, and I literally around them, like Russ and Cody Milton and Guillermo and, Matt Scotch, I was just a literal sponge around them. So, I give credit where it's due, and I've learned so much from so many of the great guys out there. I just try to listen. I listen to a lot of the stuff. I watch so many Elite Series events, and I learn because I didn't grow up with a flipping stick in my hand. I grew up walleye fishing and muskie fishing, so it was a whole different world for me. And I had a lot to learn. Like I got my first tournament came down to Texas. I got my freaking teeth kicked in, So I had a lot to learn.
Going back to the women's fishing thing, this is a deep one.
Uh,
Yeah, well, let's just go there. He started it, and I was
Tree's gonna finish
I was wanting to like ramp up into that, but so we talk about this together, but I was thinking about like what can we talk about today and stuff, and one of the things that I always struggled with, like there's some women, a lot of women love me. I feel like I'm not very public about my support of women, but I try behind the scenes. And
no, for sure, yeah.
but I always felt like there was this, and you see it outside of fishing, like all women should support all women. And I always struggled with that, just like in anything when it comes to anyone, male or female. I'm wired to support good people.
Right.
And so when it comes to women supporting all women, I don't necessarily support all women. I feel like I support a massive chunk of women that I've gotten to know and stuff, but I don't just like blindly. How do you feel about that? Like, have you had issues? Like, I know that I've had issues, but have you had issues when it comes to like other women, like being like having a say about you, or, because you seem wired. I'm very aggressive in how I'm wired. I know that everyone watching knows that. So it was easy for me to be like, okay, yeah, I don't support you. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a tough. I've got an answer for it, but it's kind of like multi-level here. So yes and no. I agree with you that early on, I was way more aggressive early on. I think you remember I was super passionate and very like anti and outspoken against women that would sexualize fishing.
Yeah.
That I was super fired up on that, and I've since learned that was a big waste of energy for me to focus all of that on that, and instead, just be the example you want to lead by was kind of what I've adapted. But yeah, I of course support, just like you, I support women's fishing, but more like deeper than that, I support women that are hustlers.
Sure.
And, I have a lot of respect for women that will put the work in. I do not subscribe to the victim mentality. I have a huge problem with that.
Yeah.
And so, if there's women out there that are eager to learn, I'm all about helping them out. If they are, very genuine, very hardworking people, I will give you my undivided attention, and every resource that I come across is yours.
Right.
And I've helped a lot of women in the past in that regard. But yeah, as far as like, I've had a lot of issues with women over the years too, and it sucks. I've been very naive in situations where you remember that women like sharing, like, what was that called? Like Women Crush Wednesday thing that women would do. I
probably wasn't invited, so no.
Okay, yeah. So, well, I learned the hard way on that there was this thing where like women would share your stuff, but then they'd want you to do it back. And I had a pretty big following back then, and I felt very used by that, if that makes sense. Like women, they wanted to associate with me or for me to share their stuff just solely because of my following.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And for me, I'm not a person, though I have a big following. I still to this day don't understand why, but I have never looked at somebody's following or obsessed over the amount of like likes or attention it gets. I take a person at their face value. And so it's really odd for me to have that kind of happen.
Yeah, I had that. I know what you're saying. I actually unfollowed pretty much a ton of people a couple years ago, and it was more because there would be women who complained that I didn't follow them.
Yeah, I had that too. And sometimes I didn't know it was a thing to follow somebody back.
Yeah.
I didn't spend much time on social media when I first got on there.
Yeah.
And I remember that same thing. People would be like, she didn't follow me. She doesn't support me.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I just had an hour phone conversation with you about things that you need help with.
Exactly.
But I didn't even realize I didn't follow you back.
Or if I wasn't liking all their stuff or commenting. And then
it's weird.
And it's like, for me, and I think I tell Chris this a lot, like, I don't want like me doing public things to be like how someone values themselves.
That's exactly the same.
It's who I am for you or whoever when no one's watching.
Yes.
And that's what I would hope people take into account. Like all that public stuff, like if I'm not...
It's superficial.
Yeah,
I mean, it really is. And I've never subscribed to anything like superficial either. And I helped found the Women's Fishing Federation and did a lot of behind the scenes stuff. And I'm so truly passionate about getting women into the sport, and my heart beats extra hard for getting women into the competitive side. That's what I really, really want to do. But my support is so much deeper than just simply liking or following or commenting, because to quite honestly, I learned that I don't have the time to get back to and that was another thing that was really hard. If you didn't get back to a message or you didn't reply back to a comment, and for a while I tried really hard to get back to everybody's messages and everybody's comments, because it's not like I don't appreciate the support, but it at the time it took a major toll on the relationship I had then, and my personal life and my free time. I didn't have any free time, because I was trying so hard to make everybody happy.
Will there be another professional women's circuit?
Well, there's the LBA right now. They comment on a lot of my stuff, and there's, I've kind of loosely. I think Melinda fished one of theirs a couple years ago. Was that the same one, Melinda Hayes?
She may have, yeah. She, I think she fishes she fished the BFLs or something though, right?
Yeah.
But she probably did fish some. I think
Yeah.
her mom might fish them.
Yeah. And admittedly, I know very little about that world.
Yeah.
I haven't really delved into that. I know that there's a few women's organizations.
Did you watch any of the, like, I mean, that was a long time ago,
that
right?
was
I mean, how long ago was that?
That was when I was in high school, maybe.
That was prior to the Elite
Elites,
Series?
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I-
2006 was the Elite Series. So, yeah, that's like early 2000s.
WBT, ESPN folded it. Women's Bass Tour. And
So
there's
no, I didn't watch any of that. I didn't have a
me
TV.
either.
But there's room for
growing up.
it, right? I mean, there's room for, right?
you want me to take that?
Well,
one?
how many members are there in the L?
There's not room for it. There's only about, I think they pull like 20 boats. So this is coming from me. So if anyone's going to get mad, it's me. Kristine probably has totally different views. So I'm speaking for me, not for a sponsor. No one at this point. They only pull like 20 to 30 boats. I mean, from an economical standpoint, you just can't justify it.
Right.
Like it is. I mean, we have clubs here in Texas that pull much more boats than that. We have working man's tournaments that have a bigger turnout than that, and that's just fact. And I'm not trying to be an a-hole, right? Like it sucks.
No, it's from a business standpoint. That makes sense.
It's hard to, and they have some sponsors, but I got a feeling they're not, they're not deep, and it's hard to justify. I've told you, I came up with an idea for a women's sort of like and I still, maybe one day it works out. I just got going through it. I just got kind of bums for women's fishing because there wasn't a lot of women out there. But with the way bass fishing is right now, there's no reason for a woman, if she wants that sort of notoriety and the sponsors that come with it and to compete, the economics of fishing, you need to go to the opens. Yeah. It's just how it is right now financially.
Absolutely. And that's the other thing, I think with those organizations, they serve a purpose and where women can find community there and have it's hard for me to speak on that because I'm wired a lot differently than I'd say 95% of women out there, if not more.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that I, because of my background and growing up with all men and working in male dominant environments since I can remember, I'm very callous to being around all guys. I'm very comfortable with it. It's not new to me.
Yeah.
Where these women, I can see how it'd be very intimidating for them to jump into, a tournament where they're the minority.
Right.
Where for me, I'm right at home.
I think, and when I talked to you before about the format that I had, it was more of a community thing.
Yeah.
It was more of a situation where we could teach women who may have been competing or want to compete in the opens level. We can really foster a learning environment, give them the tools where they can then go compete in the opens.
That's exactly how I see it. Even as like a co-angler thing, I don't look at a co-angler as something that you can really like hang your hat on as building you can learn a lot, but you're not making your own decisions.
You're making zero decisions.
You're making zero decisions, right?
Dude,
so
co-anglers,
it's like a stepping stone.
Yeah. Co-anglers despise me, the pro co-anglers.
Yeah. And that's one thing I don't get. It's like, I'm not doing this to be like the best co-angler, be a competitive co-angler. It's a cool experience.
Just learning.
I'm just learning that. I'm learning the boat world. Okay. I'm just seeing how people think and all that. Yeah.
If you're not competing as a co-angler, then you're not going to compete as a boater. But in also saying that, if you're competing as a co-angler, does not mean you can compete as a boater.
100%.
You're making no decisions.
Yeah, none.
You have no say.
Yeah, and what's crazy is like the one I fished at, was it Pickwick? I was more proud of. I had a bigger bag with Joey Nania. I fished with him, and he won the whole tournament. Right? I had 3 better fish, but my day 2 guy wasn't on anything, and my decision making. I ended up throwing a mag draft behind him at the time. This was years ago.
Is that like a swim bait or something, or is that?
I forgot we got the swim bait. I was throwing the pre-production Zaldaingerous
or coal shad. I don't know. They're all copies of the mag draft. Who knows?
But yeah, I was looking at it as, I was more proud of my decisions there because I felt like I didn't really do anything. Joey had put me on, he was on a grass float loaded with good fish, The
other thing, and I'm sure you're understanding it, is you don't have to worry about boat control as a co-angler. Like, do you kind of get screwed over? Maybe sometimes, sure, especially the live scope thing. But generally, you can control your outcome as a co-angler. Yeah. And so... once you have like that base of how things work, you got to become a boater.
Absolutely. And that's my goal from the get-go. I'm not wired to be a co-angler. And that's, people women always ask me, well, we want to be more competitive or get better. What about the co-angling thing? And I'm like, what about the kayak thing?
Yeah.
I attribute so much of what I've learned because I was out there by myself making my own decisions. Right. And the kayak allows you, you're out there on your own. You got to break down water. And I've learned so much because it's literally your decisions. And I wasn't spending the money. I didn't have the money to buy a boat 7 years ago, nowhere near it. So I got into the kayak.
I want to go back to what we were talking about, women's fishing and sponsorships and that stuff. Because one thing I wanted to ask you, you talked about how I asked you getting sponsorship over some of the elite guys, how that makes you feel. Do you think that every company in this industry should be supporting at least one woman? How do you feel about that?
As badly as I want to, I'm trying to think of what the little girl in me would have said. As badly as I want to see myself represented out there with these various companies. I also remember when I saw, was it the Brookster? I think was the face of female fishing.
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah.
She was the face. I remember how angry I was to see Hook and all these other companies, supporting. She was the face of female fishing. And so in my mind, I have to say, I love that companies are taking an interest in women's fishing. I think it's so good for our sport, but I would just hope and pray that they would vet and just make sure that they're getting women that...
I'll stop you for a second. Oh. Look, if a company is sponsoring someone like the Brookster, who, by the way, Poetic Justice made some post about bass fishing or fishing industry is terrible,
evil.
PETA, blah, blah, blah,
it was evil.
So that's congratulations on that. Yeah. But if a company is sponsoring someone like her, they don't care about women's fishing. It's not about women. They care about clicks on boobs. That has nothing to do with
Well, you can
women.
just tell by the comments that people leave. These guys commenting all these 100 heart and vegetable emojis, they're not buying fishing
zucchinis or whatever.
whatever it is. They're not buying
eggplants.
They're not watermelons.
Yeah. They're not buying stuff.
And they're not buying stuff for their wife either.
No.
Their wife would not be
Dude,
okay
I'm
with
horrified reading the comments on that. Even some very attractive women, there's some huge female influencers, fishing influencers out there that are beautiful. And I'm thank God I look like a dude out there on the water because I don't want those comments on my page. My grandma looks at this stuff,
I want to answer your question. You asked if you think sponsors in our industry should sponsor at least one woman. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. If you're willing to bust your ass and sell shit, absolutely, come on board. Come on, we got a spot for you.
That's my thing. If you got to be a hustler. Because you got to be a hustler. You got to have the work ethic because then no one can take it away from you. Mm-hmm. And now more than ever, you have to be valuable. You got to have an ROI. And I think a lot of people in the elites are seeing that. And I've seen a lot. I saw what's the kid's name that you guys had on here or talked to, who did the video about it, the reality of being a professional bass fisherman.
Oh yeah, when Rob was sitting here.
I follow all of that.
It's a tragic reality. It really
tragic.
is. Yeah,
it is. But it's just even more the reason that if you've got a work ethic, you really can get it.
He hit a gear. He hit a high gear too and got after it. I haven't checked in with him since.
He hasn't been getting the views that he wanted.
Yeah. Well, controversy is going to get the views.
My heart hurt for him, and I'm so mad at the people who made fun of him and threw shade because why am I crying? I remember even with him being broke, and it sucks.
Yeah.
And for him to tell the world he's broke,
when
people in his same class and younger have these, quote, title sponsorships that aren't paying them shit.
Yeah.
And they're acting like they're some big badass pro. And it's so BS.
Yeah.
And they're selling this false materialistic reality. And this kid, even if you think he was whining or something was wrong about what he said, that was his. That's how.
Yeah, it's raw. Yeah, for sure.
just like anything else in business. Like the harder you work, the more you get, you know, and the more you earn, I should say.
Yeah.
And I mean, like your social media following, like not that. I mean, like I don't know what your social media numbers are. Like when you go to a sponsors, I got X amount of followers, this much engagement, and things like that. What are they, by the way? You're pretty up there.
Yeah.
More so than yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think
You're
grown,
solid. You're
but-
probably like top 5 on the if you were on the elite.
I was gonna
series in
say,
social
yeah,
media.
way more than what, like 75% of like a touring pro would
or more.
get eyeballs.
I would say
yeah.
90%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that I have had some of my sponsors tell me that I move the needle more than a lot of their elite series
I've-
Yeah.
guys. Or
And you're not
I'm-
fishing in a bikini like
Yeah.
that. I mean, that's huge. I mean,
Yeah.
that's huge, right?
I've seen your you've sent me screenshots before from
Yeah.
just things, and I know a lot of the numbers, and your numbers are stupid. You know, you have the data to support a sponsorship of you,
Yeah.
and then you also have that you're on the water doing it. You
Yeah.
know, like
Speaking of, like, okay, so when you're out there in your kayak or soon to be big boat,
Mm-hmm.
do you have a camera running all the time? GoPro?
Now, mostly yes. But there's a lot of times, you know, too, when G and I'll go and have a fun trip or whatever, there's a lot of times I don't.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I'm really big on there's been so many times I've been this close to getting rid of all my social media, just going back to
Yeah,
being
same here.
self-employed. I mean,
Yeah.
like several
Yeah.
times and just not doing it. But, you know, I really do love so much what I do. Like the ups
So
and
like
downs
what
and all of
percent?
it.
So you're fishing along, you got your GoPro running, you're fishing a tournament. Like what percentage of your mind bandwidth is like, okay, this could be social media, or is it like 100%? I'm fishing the tournament.
I'm glad you asked
Yeah.
that because it's
'Cause-
now the last couple of years, it's probably almost
50-50, right?
Which is
Yep,
scary.
it is.
It's distracted me so much.
Yep.
I'm not as competitive as I used to be. I'm just not, plain
Yep.
and simple. And I think about that and I'm like, man, I remember how I was, let's say 3-4 years ago. In the last couple of years, I've shifted so much into this like business mindset to this. And it takes up so much of my like mental real estate when it comes to tournament fishing. It's crazy.
Last year I had one of the worst seasons of my career, and if I were to make an excuse, I'm not making an excuse. If I were to make an excuse to her, my wife, like, why did you have such a bad season? A lot of my mind
Focus. It's real.
bandwidth was the media side, and you got to have it. You have to have it.
Now
so how
more
do you
than
balance?
ever.
Absolutely. So how do you balance that? You know, like, yes, I want to kill it on the social media side, but I don't want to be the, you know, I don't
Yeah.
want to be a YouTuber.
Yeah,
but hey,
definitely
I want to
not.
invite you. I want to invite you into my life. I want Charles. He's a thumbnail god. Like his thumbnails, they make you want to click on them in your sleep.
I know. I saw that because
Yeah.
I know nothing about. I'm doing everything.
Yeah,
on
you're
my
learning
own.
though, and you have to.
Yeah,
You
and
have
I'm
to.
trying. I'm trying to keep up with all of it, but I
But
don't really
in
balance
the end,
it.
it's fishing. Like it is fishing. Like
Mm-hmm.
let the audience feel something that you are doing. Like it's fishing.
Yeah,
Come along, let's go fishing.
yeah. It's tough to balance it. I mean, I
Yeah.
really don't. If y'all spent a day in the life, like, or ask Guillermo, like I'm all over the place. I mean, all over the place. If you take an OCD type A person, I'm like 6 miles down the road from that. Not even kidding. Like it's a miracle I get to where I am now.
I'm a type Z type person too.
Yeah, bad. But you've got Trait to help kind of reel that in. I've got another
yeah.
type Z person
Yeah.
that I'm dating, so it's
a whole hot
fun.
mess.
G
Yeah.
is super chill.
He's
Like
so
if you were to
chill.
look at him, does he wear Birkenstocks?
No,
No,
I mean,
you would think he wears.
You would think
you got
yeah,
some
he
on
fits
right
that.
now.
I do, yeah. He fits
Are those
that
his?
type.
No. He's cool. Yeah, he's super cool, super chill. But yeah, nowadays, like if you want to bust ass and get it, you have to put yourself out there. Like have to
Yeah.
put yourself out there.
You do, and more than anything, you know, one thing that I think for a lot of women feel like they have to put on this front that they're just this badass or they know everything on the water, and it's like that's the complete opposite. You know, it's so important to be real. And you know, this video I just edited my Harris Sheen video. I freaking backlashed a cast. I went to sit down in my kayak seat and fell off my seat.
Nice.
And on a hook set, I fell backwards. You know, I it's so important to be as transparent and real as possible and
human.
own what you don't know.
Yeah.
You know, I tell Trey all the time, like, dude, I know nothing. I got a little peek into swim bait culture. after ICAST. And I mean,
yeah.
I know nothing about so much of this stuff. And it's so being real and being transparent, owning what you do know and owning what you don't know, I think is so dang crucial to
especially
to
if
that.
you're a woman, because
Oh
the
yeah,
moment
dude, you get called
fake-
out.
Yeah, the moment you fake, and I probably did it a few times because I back then, sponsors would put me in a how-to video that I didn't want to be in, and I would say no, 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 and they were like, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, just hold the bait up, and then it would blow up on social media, and I was begging that company,
Yeah.
don't make me do this, don't make me do this,
That's
please.
that kind of stuff used to really bother you.
So, one of my problems with companies, and I hope that some of them are listening when it comes to women's fishing, is you put women who shouldn't be in positions, you put women in spots that they shouldn't be in. And a lot of women, including myself back then, knew I shouldn't be doing those videos. And you would push because you just wanted a woman's face.
Yeah.
So the woman becomes you're sacrificing the woman on social media because the core guys are going to eat her alive, and then you're doing a disservice to all women. You're not accomplishing what you think you're accomplishing.
So I'm gonna be the guy in the comments right now and say that's your job as a pro angler.
My job is to sell baits, and having me do that video will not sell baits. It's going to do the opposite. Your brand's going to look like an idiot because you got an idiot trying to talk like she knows what she's talking about. And then you're going to probably lose that person as a buyer, period, because they're going to be like, anytime this company tells me something, they're lying, they're pushing something.
But to Chris's point, I mean, I kind of agree with that because if you're a female and you want the same sponsorships and opportunities that all these guys are getting, in my opinion, you got to be able to do what the guys are doing.
Well,
Yeah, and it's the same thing too. Like the rookies or so. I mean, like I remember when I was a rookie and I was sitting in a
Seminars,
Strike
you
King
know.
booth. Like
No,
KVD had just talked about a crankbait, and then I got to go in and talk about the same crankbait. I feel like I was that big.
Yeah, right behind KBD,
Yeah.
right?
No, not. Okay, so yes, right? So if you're going to sponsor a woman, then she better be
Yeah.
able to talk about that,
Yeah.
right? But even then, there were things like it would be a bait. Strike King would do it. People would come at ICAST, not necessarily Strike King, but like a media person would come in and they'd give me this bait. They'd be like, hey, Trait, talk about this bait to blah, blah, blah. And I had never even fished with a bait.
Yeah.
Like, how am I supposed to talk about it?
And people will sometimes too almost expect you to not know, and so it puts that added
Setting it
pressure
up.
on there.
Yeah, but
Newsflash: you know what sells baits? Catching fish on it.
yeah.
And how do you catch fish on it? Going out there and fishing.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying, though. I feel like women. It's kind of a situation you need to be doing the due diligence that the woman that is in that position knows what she's talking about.
Yeah.
If your ROI is gonna come from her doing a how-to video, right?
Yeah.
If that's the case, also let that woman talk about what she knows.
Right. And to your point, Trait, it's women, if they're hearing this is not us saying we don't think you deserve this opportunity or you shouldn't have this. It's us like protecting the women because we know what's going to happen if they're put in that situation. People on the internet will absolutely tear you apart, eat you alive, and it's going to discourage you from even wanting to do this because I've seen it.
Yes.
And so it's not that, no, we don't want you to get this opportunity because either we want it ourselves or we don't think you deserve it. We're literally trying to protect you from what's out there because we've seen it.
And protect the person and women's fishing in
Yeah,
general.
all of it, the whole thing in general. Yeah.
So we've done a lot of work with the local North Texas high school programs. There are a lot of women. I mean, you talked about you can count on one or two hands how many women are in professional fishing right now. Dude, it's like 30, 70, maybe some of those schools, man, like 40, 60 women.
That's good.
And so how do we, and you can make a heck of a living as a professional angler, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
especially
I heard some numbers that some of these pros are retiring on, like, wow, I mean, that's good money. You can be made. How do we promote and how do we convert these high school young women into pro anglers or into the next level from high school to college or kayak fishing or pro angling? Like, how do we keep them in our sport?
That was the number one question when we went to the Bassmaster Roundtable a couple months ago. That was their question. Like, why do we have a big percentage that fish high school, and then that drops off a little bit into college, and then it drops off to almost non-existent after college? And why is that?
It drops off huge into college.
Yeah.
Into
I mean, huge. Yeah. And they asked us why. And there was a lot of different answers. And I think that I don't really have an answer. I think there's a lot of variations. Like, women maybe have different priorities. It was a fun thing. They are intimidated. They had bad experiences. I know I mentor some of the college gals, and some of them had really bad experiences, you know, dating a guy on the team, something goes wrong. And then there's, you know, there's a lot of things I think in that regard. And women, I don't want to speak for all women, but I know that, you know, you've got to be really thick skinned to be able to kind of survive in this world. Wouldn't you probably agree with that?
Yeah. There were two girls who did very well in high school fishing in Texas several years ago, and they went off to two different schools to go, but they were going to both go fishing, and they were so discouraged. Neither of them ended up college fishing. They tried.
Why was that?
Guys didn't want to be their partners, and economically they didn't have their own boats.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Dude, I'm emotional today, but yeah. The guys were like, why would we want to be you to be our partner, you know? And so they couldn't get a partner, and they had some issues in high school. Even anytime they would catch fish, they would be accused of them not being theirs or whatever.
Yeah, that's a big thing. I got a letter from two gals from their mom that said that, like, I broke down. I was bawling, like actually bawling. A lady reached out to me and said that my two daughters fish. They're one of the only all girls high school teams in our region. They do okay in tournaments, but every time they do well, all the boys accuse them of their dad catching all their fish. And they said, you know, Mom, like, we don't want to do this anymore. But every time they like see one of my videos, they're like, okay, well, we can, because she's doing it too. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, here we go, freaking floodgates open. Yeah. But that, like, I've been there. And that's, I think I saw a lot of the comments saying, like, how do you combat that? How do you deal with it? And the whole, you got to know who you are, and you have to be able to like drown out all that outside noise, and because you'll never survive if you don't. Yeah, but it's hard.
Especially
It's absolutely hard. I mean, you look at other sports like, you know, basketball, football, hockey, whatever it is. Men are just bigger, stronger, faster. Period. We all know that, right?
Yeah.
Like, fishing is a mental game. Women are mentally strong, but still, why aren't more women like, you know, going head to head with us mentally?
I think you hit on the nail. Like, especially when you get older, we have different priorities. We got to keep our households, you know, like lots of things. But talking about younger women, college, into high school, dude, you dudes are as immature as it gets. And
it's real, the stuff that I hear from the college gals. It's unreal.
I mean, the guys who came after me at first, I had an article done. Bassmaster Mark Hicks wanted to do an article. I was fairly completely irrelevant, under the radar at that point. He does this article. Everyone knows me. These young dudes come after me, and they're clueless. So they're clueless and they're reckless. And there's a lot of dudes saying, why does she get that and I don't have that? And you see it even with like Haley Deegan when it comes to racing.
Yeah, for sure.
You see it, every girl that isn't dominating, and most women don't dominate in sports when it comes to competing with men. You see that mentality. And if you, like you said, don't have thick skin, and I'm talking about thick skin, and very few people in general have that sort of thickness.
Yeah.
And you're out. So if you're a woman, a girl, you already stick out. And then you have any sort of, it's like.
Well, in everything you do, you know, like Chris, I know a lot of guys, like Guillermo, he would have a huge issue with this. If every single tournament you fish, if you had someone questioning whether you did that on your own, I mean, it's like a pride hit.
Yeah.
You know, most men couldn't handle it. It's, I mean, it's all, and it's for me, it was every single tournament. I had people, you know, my friends would say, people are asking behind the scenes, well, who helped her out at this one, or who helped her here? It's like, man, after a while, and that almost became the end of my tournament fishing. It got.
Did you ever have a man come up to you and say, "Oh, you finished third, second, first, whatever it is. Who helped you?" Oh, you had people come up in person.
I did. I had 1 or 2 people over the course of 5 or 6 years actually ask me to my face.
Wow.
Which I obviously give them credit because
these are normally the keyboard guys.
Yeah.
I mean, right? I mean,
yeah.
Keyboard guys are thick,
1 or
man.
2 over the years.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why I started running my GoPros a long time ago. I got accused of cheating on a tournament, and I actually had all the footage. But I didn't post it. I just had it. And my first Kentucky lake one, I got accused of cheating. Someone catching my fish for me, and then I went and posted all the footage.
Catching.
Yeah, it was some troll, but man, like I wasn't as mentally strong back then. So
of course, that's how she was.
Yeah, it was hard. It took me, gosh dang, and if I hadn't had worked at Shields and kind of, you know, when my livelihood was sales, and I would literally, you know, people would call in, and I'd pick up the archery shop phone. And people would point blank ask to talk to somebody else, and this was affecting my livelihood. You know, people talk about.
If you worked at Bass Pro Shops, that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, no, it was different back then. But you know, people talk about now they don't get taken seriously at tackle shops, and I'm like, dude, I'm trying to make a living, and I'm not. People won't even talk to me on the sales floor. And for a while, you know, my managers would say, dude, Fisher, you got to get back there and just get at it, and you stick with it. And I was the only female company wide, and I had a mind shift, and it was okay. So these people aren't giving me the time of day. Instead of going up to them when they're picking up a Hoyt carbon spider and asking them, can I help you? I had a guy that was looking at one, and I'd say, oh, that's the carbon spider. That's got a 30-inch axle, 6.5-inch brace height. It's a very forgiving boat. It's one of my favorites. You want to try it out? And they're just like, so I changed I didn't even give them the option not to talk to me. I started because I knew I was good. I knew my product. I knew I could outsell any guy up there if they gave me a chance, but I couldn't expect them to give me a chance. I had to make it happen for myself.
Yeah.
And so that's what I took into the fishing thing to kind of make that happen and have that translate. But it took me a couple years of being really upset and being really bitter and being just angry at all these guys for not taking me seriously or hearing that over and over. And I was like, wait, I just have to do the same thing I did back when I was working at Shields.
Yeah, you see that with a lot of women. They like, I wouldn't call it whiny, but they're like, that guy didn't give me the time of day or whatever. And it's like, okay, did you give that guy the time of day? Did you talk to him? Because you hear it like, oh, that rep didn't give me the time of day or blah, blah, blah. Well, it goes both ways. You know, it might not be that they're ignoring you because you're a woman. You don't know that. Did you reach out to them? You know,
that's the thing. I feel like, you know, and I see so many good women doing this, and I see it in all these forums. And there's a lot of this man hating sometimes. But when I hear these things saying, they're like, yeah, this person didn't talk to us, take it seriously. You're giving that too much power. Yeah. Like, stop giving that power. It's almost like you're looking for them to ignore you at a point. And I know what happens. Like, you know, goodness, I remember a Seminole tournament I had like years ago. I had this sweet old man, like he had to be pushing 95 years old, and he comes up to the ramp, and I'm loading my kayak up, and he was like, what you doing out here? I was like, oh, we got a big tournament. And he was like, huh, they let women fish these now? And I was like, yep, right after we got the permission to vote, we get to fish. But you know, people, you just got to stop taking stuff so seriously and stop looking for it. There's going to be a couple your guys out there that are going to give you
warriors.
But stop giving it power. Don't let it live up here. Just go out, and if you got a rep that you think's ignoring you, you go up and start conversation. Yeah, you go up and make the move and talk to them.
And then if they're a butthole, okay,
then that's fine. But then don't dwell on it. Because I used to make that mistake. I became a victim of that when it happened, and people would ignore me, and I felt like I was owed this space. But I have to learn. You got to make your own space. Yeah, don't expect people to do it for you. Yeah, you know, it's a whole attitude shift.
Yeah, I totally agree. Women's fishing, it's a weird thing. Are we allowed to talk about the Bassmaster thing?
Yeah, we talked about it during the open a little bit. So at least most
are they
of the
calling
details.
it the Bassmaster?
Yeah. That's what I think they settled on. Was Bassmaster.
Yeah, I heard
Bassmaster.
Yeah, I heard him say it on stage. Yeah. It's like, huh?
So what exactly is the Bassmaster program?
So it's not completely finalized, but what I think is we can put out there is that Bassmasters is taking initiative they chose 3 women, and I don't know if I can announce who they are yet, but I'll just say they chose a couple of women to follow and highlight their competitive journey. So they're going to put some efforts in between kind of telling the story. And obviously the whole goal is to try to get more women into the competitive
Absolutely.
side.
I asked you earlier, why can't we convert some of these,
That's their big question
50-50 male-female to, that on the circuit?
Yeah.
Like, that's great. It's a great initiative, right?
Yeah.
What will you say the attention you girls are gonna get? What would you say to some of these elite guys who say that space that should be spent on us, or energy that media should be spending on us?
Because there are those guys out
Oh
there.
yeah,
it's coming
for sure. And I fully expect it. Again, that's why I was very vocal in that round table to make sure that we're choosing, good candidates. I did the best that I could to put that out there and just say, listen, it's really important because I know what's going to happen. There's a lot of people vying for camera time and resources, and when the resources are dwindling right now, I have a lot of my friends personally on the Elite Series and Bass Pro Tour that have been cut, had sponsorships cut. It's like devastating right now, and I hate to see it. So more than ever, it's so important to be able to say, we are choosing these people because of this, because they bring this value, because they move the needle, because they can help inspire and get more women into it.
And Bassmaster was like, we understand.
For the most part, they agreed with me on that. I get very vocal because I'm passionate about that.
Rightfully
really
so.
passionate about it.
Yeah. So again, though, when that guy says like, "Hey, like, Kristine, what the hell, man? What's your response to that angler to their face? Like,
well, I asked them, can you inspire this 5-year-old girl to get into a bass
Yeah.
boat? Do you have the power to do that? That's my answer.
Yeah.
that's a great answer.
Yeah, that's really, and that's the only answer. Because again, I hate it for the, I feel for the guys, and I see, but at the same time, like, I see a lot of people that are complaining or making comments about these college kids now that have a lot of, their parents have a lot of money. They're buying them a boat. They're buying them all this. And I was not that fortunate. I had to pay for my own college, and I had to work 3 jobs. And I told Trey, I literally did have to donate plasma 3 times a week, however many times I was legally able to get by. And instead of, it'd be really easy for me to get very angry and be bitter or resentful against these people that were more fortunate than me financially. But what good does that do me? No. It's like, you got to stop focusing on what other people have that you don't have and make it happen for yourself. And it's because if you focus on that, like, why does she get this? Why does he get that? Why is he getting this time? Where's that getting you?
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
Do you think that there's enough women fishing at this time that we will be seeing a female in the elite sooner than later?
This is where I don't think people are going to like my answer, because I get a lot of comments of guys that are saying, man, I know a gal that she's a hammer on this lake, and I fish with some of those gals, and they're good, but I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
We're not. I don't think right now, just simply because there's not enough of us.
But even if you look at Pale Martin Wells, which is considered the best female angler ever, she didn't compete in the opens when she did very well when she could fish
it's
them.
So much harder, and that's what I try to tell people. In my kayak space, we've got some great kayak anglers, and there's a couple that I know for sure could compete in the opens. A couple. But I don't think people are being realistic when they look at that level of competition and what it is right now.
It's fierce.
It's. I think some Elite Series guys wouldn't make it through the opens. I put money on it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Like, the opens right now is so competitive, and that's what's exciting for me, because like I said, I like getting my butt kicked, but I think that.
When's the last time you got your butt kicked?
Well, I get my butt kicked fair every now and
on occasion,
by Russ, like every single tournament, it seems like. But yeah, and I will in the opens. I will. I fully expect it, and I need it. I think it'll help me grow a lot as an angler, because I need to be challenged in a huge way. But I think we have to be realistic when we look at what it is going to take to actually qualify for the elites. And it is extremely, we got these kids now that are coming out of college that are so dang hungry. I listened to some of the interviews. These kids are spending 300 days on the water, and they were literally born bass fishing since they were 12, 13 in tournaments. Like I've done it for 7 years. They've done it for longer, and I'm 15 years older than them.
Yeah.
So when you think about the level of experience that these kids have and how hungry, they don't have girlfriends or kids or, any type of obligations. That's dangerous, and they're hungry for it.
Oh, yeah.
And we got to be realistic when we're looking at that. And I think it will happen. I have no doubts that, one day we're going to see a gal do it. And I hope to God that I am alive to be there when it happens. And I hope that, I know Trait helped inspire so many people, including myself. Hope I can help be a part of that movement that helps inspire whoever it's going to be.
Yeah.
But I think we're still, I think we're still a little ways out from that.
I agree.
Just because we don't have the numbers. That's really it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think
The
about
odds aren't there.
How many guys go through the opens that
That
people
are
don't
good.
even know?
Yes.
Get
Oh,
a
gosh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any little brothers and sisters or nieces and nephews that are young?
I've got a younger brother. Yeah.
Would you recommend professional bass fishing to your little brother?
Oof. That's a tough question. I mean, it's hard because, Chris, you guys can both relate to this. There's not a day that I don't wake up and I'm not overwhelmed with gratitude for what I get to do. I truly love what I get to do. Is it for everybody? Is it for most people? No, it's not. The time on the road, the time away from you have to have an absolutely perfect situation. You have to have the right partner. You have to have all your ducks in a row, and you've got to be wired a different way to be able to. And I don't think they're setting a lot of these college kids up for that. I don't think the expectations are realistic for what it takes to simply, one, be on the road as much as we are on the road. And a lot of people, really romanticize that. And that's so sad because, again, I love it, but I'm a masochist when it comes to that kind of stuff. But, would I recommend it for your average person? No, I wouldn't.
Yep.
And I hate to say that.
Yep.
But is it the most rewarding career, and it has been an absolute blessing, and is there a lot of power in what we do? Yeah, for sure.
I think the biggest thing right now is I'm seeing with a lot of high school and college anglers is I'm going to do it with a rod and reel. I'm going to do it with a rod and reel. Okay, great. A couple of you might qualify, but then what? When you don't say a single thing when the camera's on you, okay, your brand just plummeted. You're there, but your brand just plummeted. You got to be well rounded. You got to be hard working. Yeah.
You
all
really
the way
do.
around.
The funniest thing is people, they say, man, you get to just fish for a living. And I just start laughing. That's what I do.
It's so much more than that. It's so much more than just fishing to make a living. I promise you.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, on the boat side and the kayak side, you just can't go into it thinking you're going to make it based on your abilities anymore.
Yep.
You gotta be well rounded.
Yep.
How, it's kind of random. How calculated are you with your social media posts and what's trending or trying to stay up on what the algorithms or the platforms want to see? Because your posts do crazy good compared to most fishermen.
Some do. It's definitely, some do really well, some don't do as well. I wish I could tell you why some do better than others, and I wish I could tell you that I'm extremely analytics savvy.
Yeah.
I'm the opposite of that spectrum.
Yeah.
I've had to reach out to so many people and just help understand real basic analytics, because even with you, I was like, is this good? I don't know. The thing I do understand is the time to post. I think, I can tell when people are online. That's so basic.
Yeah. We don't even pay attention to that though. That's how bad we are.
Yeah. That's about what I kind of try to pay attention to. And I know that, I just, with TikTok's prime example, when people were doing all the trends and the dancing and stuff, I just did me.
Yeah.
I put my fishing stuff on there. I didn't do any of the things that were trending, and that's probably why my stuff doesn't do super great over there. But I literally, social media, I take who I am and what I do and I put it out there.
Your stuff doesn't do well on TikTok?
Some of it does. When I have a cool catch or whatever, of course that does. Or, when I get I'm animated, as always, that'll do well sometimes. But no, some of them don't.
Every time, I'll tell you the ones, your reels or that I watch, it doesn't fail. If you're skipping, I can't help it. But it grabs my attention like that. Have you noticed that?
On some of them, and for me, it's so funny because it's especially when it's like a weightless fluke on a spinning rod. It's not super technical.
Yeah.
I love it's pretty,
you can't,
but
stop, especially I can see like a non-fisherman or a casual fisherman.
If they don't.
But even if you know what you're doing, that it's like whatever, you still stop when you see it, you know.
So it gets them a little bit. Yeah. I didn't even think about it that way.
Because I do. As soon as I see that skip, then I'm like, I watch it.
And honestly, I think being on a kayak helps me too, because I'm able to kind of walk all over mine, and people are like, oh, they don't understand how stable our kayaks are.
So that kind of grabs their attention.
I think that definitely probably plays into it. You know, I wish, like I said, there's some things like I've had several like amazing muskie catches, and I think, oh my gosh, this is going to do great. And it tanks, you know, and then it's like, I'll post something that I think is ridiculous and it blows up. I can't even pretend to understand what's trending or what the algorithms do. I reach out to a couple of friends of mine that do very well on that. But when it comes to that, there's not a lot of resources out there that it's changing all the time.
Yeah.
Those northern demographics are a lot tougher than those southern demographics. Muskie, walleye, smallmouth, even like perform. It's crazy.
And the smallmouth ones, you know, that I think I've got some of the coolest smallmouth catches and clips, and they just don't perform.
It's one of those things like, you know, you had to be there. You had to be there for how cool to appreciate how cool it really was, this smallmouth catch, but just doesn't translate through a camera lens.
Yeah, and one of the things we were talking was high production, you know, and one of my sponsors, I'm fortunate to be with Outdoor America, and so they do understand a lot of the analytics, and they have a lot of the top like high-end data people. And at dinner at the Classic last year, one of their guys was telling me that the social media platforms will actually detect the metadata, and they can tell what type of platform, like what type of device
it came from. Yeah,
it came from. And they said that if it comes from something that's not a phone or a GoPro, the algorithm will bury it, which would make sense because I had some of the coolest stuff shot on Guillermo's camera, and it buries it. And so it said they would go in and rewrite that metadata to trick the system into thinking that it was shot, their high production stuff was shot, and it performed better. And I'm thinking like, I love high production stuff. I think it's crisp, it's clean. I'm drawn to it. I want to see it, but social media doesn't want to see it. And that just infuriates me.
Well, it's probably because they don't want these big firms coming in with these giant budgets. Yeah. And if you have a lot of money controlling the algorithm, so I understand that that wouldn't incentivize the average Joe to make a post. Yeah. And the average Joe and millions of them, average Joe's making a post is more people on the advertising side.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
What else you got?
That's kind of it. You know, I just really, on the women's side, I wanted to talk about like your thoughts. You know, I know that some of our thoughts are the same. Some of them were kind of a little different, but it's such a touchy subject because I'm kind of against the whole, it's weird. People would think I'm for every company sponsoring women, and to an extent I am, but I'm also like, we have to do due diligence. And if you can't find that right woman, then don't sponsor a woman, which is kind of what Chris sort of touched on with his answer.
Yeah. Well, I think we're alike, Trey, in the fact that, you know, we've talked a lot. We grew up sleeping at the boat ramps in the back of the truck. You know, I did that for years. You did it for years, eating, you know, not making any money, paying our dues. Yeah. Is the easiest way to say it. And it's, you know, I think we both just want to know that we've got, you know, companies are investing in genuine, hardworking, talented women out there, because there are some out there. Yeah. And, you know, I wish that we could focus more on that over a social media presence or like a pretty face.
Yeah. If you don't have the passion as a woman, with that passion comes the thick skin, because you're so focused. And if you don't have that passion,
you're not going to make it.
No.
And that's, I want so badly to see somebody make it.
Yeah. Same.
I think we all do.
I just want it to be, it's going to take the right girl. Yeah. And I'm here for that. And I just wish that companies would put a little more effort into establishing who that right girl is, instead of just saying, we need a woman, making it quick. You know, especially men, dude. Men are the worst. They don't understand it, and they don't lean on other women to figure it out. And then we're right back to square one. Okay, that woman didn't work. She did something dumb, or she got ate alive, and now what do we do? You know?
Yeah, back at square one.
And then if it's a bad woman, it runs it for women for a couple of years, because that marketing guy's like, I'm never working with women again. Yeah. It's unfortunate that it's such a a tough space to work in because we do need women out there, but because of all those possibilities of it going bad, it requires a lot of effort.
It does. And one woman is going to have the attention. I mean, she kind of represents, like, I feel like I have to represent the whole.
You do.
It's just like, you know, when the walleye guys got caught cheating, that was a black eye on not just like walleye fishing, but fishing.
Yeah.
You know how many people, like, you remember that? I feel like it's the same for women's fishing.
Yeah.
So we have to like cross our T's and dot our I's and make sure that we are literally, I feel so much responsibility in that regard.
Yeah.
And I wish that, you know, that would be felt across the board too.
Same. Yeah. Instead of a lot of the women who get picked who maybe aren't necessarily putting in the dues and stuff, they just see it as it's them. They're just getting a sponsorship. It's just for them and not acknowledging it can't be self-serving. That's because it's such a bigger impact on women's fishing. Right. And you're either going to help it or you're going to hurt it. Yeah. And a lot of those women don't even like...
They can't grasp it. It's about like the social media clout or the fame or the... I don't know. I've never understood that.
Easy attention.
Yeah, it's easy.
Easy
And
attention.
man, it's just not the way to do it.
Yeah.
Well, Kristine, you said it all. You're absolutely an inspiration to young women in the sport of fishing. Trait, you too. I mean, both of you guys are an inspiration. And for all you women that are watching out there, don't let some of the things, you know, they talked about discourage you from becoming a professional angler or succeeding in the sport, because there are absolutely opportunities, and these two have absolutely tried to pave the way and are paving the way. I know you got Sam Rayburn Brighton early in the morning, and we took up a lot of your time here tonight. Before we let you go, we got to ask you, what's your life advice? Give the viewers and listeners some basic life advice.
Basic life. You're coming from someone that lived on the road for like 6 years and did things backwards from the get-go. You want my life advice?
Yeah.
Give the women watching...
Give us some bow hunting tips. I don't know.
No, give women watching your best advice.
So I think my best advice is, one, just be true to who you are and just know who you are. That's the best advice I can give anyone. If you are secure in who you are, nothing that anybody says is ever going to matter. I mean, it really doesn't. That's the best. It took me a long time to learn that. Like, I wish I had that figured out when I was in my teens or 20s. My life would have been a lot easier. But if you know who you are and you're grounded in who you are, and just believe that with a lot of hard work, you literally can do anything you want to. Anything. The sky's the limit.
There you go. We appreciate your time tonight, Kristine.
Yeah, thanks,
that
guys.
was awesome. Thank you very much. And maybe we'll go around too later in the season after you win a couple more kayak derbies. Maybe even on the open side.
Yeah, maybe we can talk after Hartwell.
Yeah.
See, after I do my first open as a pro.
Don't hit any boats in the lockdown on Hartwell.
Dude, I'm telling you, that's my biggest. I just don't want to scratch anybody's boat. That's my thing.
Dude,
you'll be fine.
I've junked some stuff up.
You'll be fine.
You survive.
Yeah.
Good job, Kristine. We'll see you at the next one.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all.